busy week in court cases that made national headlines. Now in the news again for the second time, an officer acquitted for killing a suspect. This time, a mistrial declared in the case of a Cincinnati police officer who shot and killed Sam DuBose. Friday, the jury said it was deadlocked in the retrial of Officer Ray Tenzing. This was the second trial. The jury hung in the first attempt. Tenzing is accused of shooting DuBose in the head after pulling him over for a missing front license plate. This was back in 2015. The victim's family now demanding a third trial. This verdict is just the latest in a string of officer acquittals and hung juries when it comes to police-involved shootings. Attorney Joseph Marrone here to explain what we are seeing playing out in court. Joseph, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So, looking at this pattern that we're seeing, I guess my first question for you is, when is this an issue of this is police procedure versus when is this sort of an utter disregard for life because maybe there's prejudices involved?
Some of these cases do possess prejudice, but you have to look at the case as a whole and what the case is about. In all of these cases, including this case, all the juries have struggled with the verdict. So you can't blame the jury. I think ultimately you got to blame the law and what they're interpreting. Now, when you talk about prejudice in this specific case, the one with Mr. Du Bois, you know, you look at the case in general. He's saying the car was trying to drive away, his arm was caught, he was in danger, and he had a right to shoot, obviously, Mr. Du Bois. Okay, but if you go back and reanalyze it, they did make some changes in the police report. His partners obviously concurred with that, and it shows that there's a level of prejudice after the fact that cover themselves. So actually, this person really didn't get a fair assessment when this whole thing was analyzed.
When you look at these cases, I think for so long we always heard if we have body cameras, if we have dash cam video, that's going to show us what really happened. In the Philando Castile case, for instance, we have the dash cam video when the officer, Geronimo Yanez, walks up to the car. The dash cam video sort of stops, well, not stops, but we can't see what happens inside that car. And then his girlfriend, Diamond, starts recording on Facebook. But it seems that we sort of miss a moment right there for the jury to know exactly what happened inside that car.
Well, I think that there's two explanations of what you asked. You asked about the proliferation of video and how that has impacted the whole police investigation.
Correct.
So the good news is it brings it out to the forefront, right? We get to see what's going on. It gets to almost police to police, kind of level the playing field. The bad news is it puts these prosecutors in a bad position because they only investigate these cases for a couple days and then they rush for indictment and put it basically on the jury and say, hey, look, we indicted the officer. It's up to the jury. The jury's stuck with the law, and the law is really not favorable to the person who ultimately was either shot and killed. So that's really what happened with video. So, you know, the video, it's a big debate. I think it's necessary, but ultimately, you know, you're going to continue to have these problems with the acts of the police. In this particular case, when we're talking about the Castile case, you know, the officer was put in a position where he knew the individual had a gun. He announced he had a gun. Now he has the threat. When he has the threat, he has a right to use deadly force. If he believes he's going to be either killed or someone around him, he can shoot, and he has to shoot until the threat is extinguished. And that's what you've seen here. These cases are all case by case. You have to look at them as a whole, and you have to understand the law.
Looking forward from your legal perspective, do you think this sort of changes anything for us, or do you think that this is just exhibiting that the jury says they can't decide, and so it's tough? I don't know. It leaves me sometimes puzzled by these decisions.
I think ultimately what has to happen here is you have to get, you know, the local people that the community trusts to help them interpret how they should handle a stop and how to work with police, and the police have to be better educated in their procedures, and I think it's an ongoing thing between the community and the police to improve it. Like Obama said, he said, listen, go out there and do something, make a change, and I think this is what the procedure is. But I also think you have to understand what the law is. The officer has a right to use deadly force, and if he's in a scenario where he believes he's a threat or others, he can use it, but it's a split-second decision. What happens is they go to these trials and they break the case apart, film by film. The officer's not in that position when he's at the scene. He only has a second or two to make a decision, and he's justified under the law.
All right. Well, we'll stay tuned and see what happens. Joseph, thank you so much.
Thank you.